Hello, podcast listeners. A very warm welcome back to a new episode of your favorite show, The Hard Yard. Now, again, I'm really glad. I'm happy to be back 100%, undoubtedly, unquestionably, 100% completely happy to do another episode for you all. Our last episode of The Hard Yard took me to places I've never been before, and I'm very proud of. We streamed in top 100 in India on Apple Podcasts and in careers category. So again, what we did was we explained the NFTs in general, and I announced my own NFT collection, right? So again, we're back today with a new topic, a topic which is really dear to me, which is a topic that I was really focused on for the past few months. And now, before we go there, before we jump into the episode, I just want to give you all a huge shout out. You know, thank you so much for listening. And without you listening, I couldn't be more happier for sure. And so a hearty thank you so much to each and every one of you for listening. I wish you all the best and keep up your good work. And stay fabulous and fantastic for sure. And today's episode, however, will be another monologue or another audio blog, however you call it, so in which I'll be talking about fiction and literature. So without a further ado, let's jump into the episode. So yes, as I mentioned, we are 100% back completely after a long hiatus. It always happens with the hard yard, right? So it needs me to do some research, some work, so it takes me time. However, today's topic, as I mentioned, to be exact, why I really think that one should put their head around literature and fiction, especially for their own long-term benefits, for their own long-term well-being. So that would be the topic. So basically, why I really want you to, take time and put yourself into fiction, put yourself in literature, right? So that would be the topic. I'll start off with my personal story, a personal story of mine. I'll take you back to first quarter of 2020. Remember the time COVID happened? So that would be the time we're going back to. So the first quarter of 2020 for me was a real critical. Yes, it was a critical time for me. I came back from Ireland to India after around 6 years, and I was working. I was working in hospitality before COVID happened. So I was in hospitality working with a restaurant, and unfortunately, the whole industry had come to a stall due to COVID. So I had my goals, but and there were opportunities for sure, and I was also upskilling myself to get better opportunities. But however, nothing mattered to the market at the time. The whole industry had come to a stall, as I said. So I did what I could. I took a job that served my needs at the time. The basic needs, right? To be able to pay rent, to be able to, sort out the debts for the first 2 or 3 months of COVID. So I started off working as a social media and recruiting associate with a startup here in Hyderabad. And if I really remember it properly, it was the same time I started writing blogs. So I started writing blogs for medium.com. It was mid 2020, I believe. It was around my birthday month, June, when I started writing on medium.com. And to this day, I really feel grateful for that opportunity. I got that opportunity through a friend of mine, through a close friend of mine. I feel happy that I was able to sustain through the pandemic without losing much of energy, much of sanity, I should probably say. I was really new to writing at the time. I still consider myself as a new writer for sure, but again, it was like I'm very new. I was like a child back then. Now I consider myself as a 2-year old, right? So there is a difference. So I was working as a freelance social media guide for a couple of months at the time, and setting up pages across social, and creating content for different social platforms. uh, so that used to be my full-time job for the first couple of months. And later on I got moved into recruiting, and it was like a full cycle recruitment, because it was the core of that particular organization I was working with. So again, at the beginning, as a social media guy, relatively new in the country. I born in, but I lived in for 24 years. But again, after 6 years, it felt like a new country. So I had to be very curious about the platforms that are working currently, and about the content that would really go well for the organization. So that was my core motive. And for that, I was really reading books, and I was interacting with people from different social media consultancies, from friends, following influencers, as well as influencers from India. And also I was reading stuff from online sources and all. So it's all for to upskill myself to do well in my role. And in late 2020, I believe, I came across this blog on TED. Honestly, I was following TED for almost a decade, reading blogs, listening to the talks, right? Because I really found the information interesting, thoughtful most of the times, and also useful. Now, the blog I read on TED on that particular day was all about fiction and literature, and how fiction and literature is helpful. Basically, I barely got through my graduation in computer science. I worked in hospitality for almost 6 years, and literature and fiction was never my learned skill. I was curious about storytelling, of course, as a marketing tact, perhaps, but as I told you earlier, I never approached it through academic knowledge. Fiction, literature, and storytelling are the things I was not prepared for. However, the blog I read on TED that particular day completely changed my course of action for the last 2 years. The blog basically concluded saying that fiction is good for people's mental health. And as a big believer of TED Talks and big follower of TED Talks, I really wholeheartedly wanted to do something about it. One way that I felt to contribute was by telling stories that are so fiction, by telling stories that are so fiction and yet so real in 2022. So for that reason, I chose the theme a little girl and her pet and their journey to become social media influencers. Right. So I was so convinced, and I really wanted to tell that story. And the characters I chose were from Ireland as well, the country I lived in and the country where I worked for 6 years, for most of my professional career until this point. To keep it simple, during my stay in Ireland, I have had the opportunity to attend the events that are so deeply rooted in art and culture. I worked in the food business that helped me to interact with people who are like at least 30 years elder to me, and also the people who are at least 15 years younger to me, a diverse demographic. And I also feel fortunate that I was able to meet founders, entrepreneurs, operators who are into art as well. Especially, I remember meeting a CEO who comes from theater art, and at the same time who's also into the most futuristic technology domain. I also made quite a good few friends, who were into art and culture. And I think, Ireland is one such country that's so deeply rooted into poetry and also competing in today's technology evolution. And that really got me motivated to get into fiction, write stories and independently publish my first storybook, right? So there are other things too that motivated me to write fiction, to work on my storytelling. But again, uh, it's that blog that actually got me to write, right? I ended up with a conclusion to write something that could possibly help someone understand good aspects of social media and the people who are celebrating the success of it, and also people who are celebrating the success on it. As a millennial, that was my biggest researched topic, right? So social media evolved around us and evolved while we were watching it. And it's social media, and also it's the Gen Z. So that's the theme, and that's my most researched topic, right? As someone who's into marketing and who's into social media marketing especially. So I chose the platform Wattpad, knowing that most of the consumers most of the consumers out there fall under the same demography, of this particular storybook. The readers especially fall under, the probability of chances for them to read this book were higher, right? So I got onto Wattpad, and I published it on Wattpad for the first time. The journey was so lively. My storybook was trending at the top of Wattpad in couple of categories, and it was fun, for sure. I was able to participate in a competition in India, and also be able to have a conversation with fellow writers. Finally I was able to tap into my fascination to become a writer, and also collaborate with people across the globe. Sometimes it was for editing or for the artwork, or sometimes it's solely for the inspiration, right? So it was honestly super satisfying for the wannabe writer in me. And I mentioned it somewhere on social, I believe, that writing this storybook made me feel like a protagonist. It made me feel like a hero in real life. Now let's come to the main talk. Let's talk about fiction. From my own experience, reading fiction and indulging myself in fiction and literature definitely taught me a few good things, for sure. And I believe, like, we're not acting like the protagonist in real life, at least myself. When I'm watching a movie or a documentary, I love it when the good guy beats the bad guy. We all love it when the protagonist saves another human being from evil. We love it when the Supermans and Spider-Mans fight and destroy evil. We also love it when the hero does something kind. Even in a YouTube video, we love it when the streamer helps a stranger in the grocery store or a homeless man in the neighborhood. We are definitely prone to put ourselves in the shoes of the protagonist most of the times. However, in reality, I'm talking raw here. In fucking reality, I don't think we are acting like one. And I do understand. I am empathetic to the situation where we all have bills to pay, and we all have aspirations to chase, and families to feed, and we're all competing. We're competing to get what is ours, and somehow during the process, I believe that we are somewhat losing our human side. And that's not good. We are trading our humanity for more cash, more comfort, and more luxury. And that's where the fiction comes in very handy for the welfare of the humankind. And let me make it very, very clear, I love competition. I grew up being a notorious cricket fan. Even when playing against friends and cousins, I enjoyed the competition. I always went for the W. I always went for the win. There were always heated arguments, heated debates, and we used to not talk with each other for days over a game. I'm 100% for the competition. It's the adrenaline and it's the thrill, of course. And still to this day, I love a good competition. I mentioned good because today we are competing to such an extent where we are being mean to each other, and we are becoming cruel, and we are forgetting to care about others even after the game. As someone who's living in 2022, in the year 2022, I feel like we are lacking love and kindness. And somehow fiction definitely makes me believe that we can only win in life with love and kindness more than with hate and fear. There is a great need for all of us to lead with love and lead with kindness rather than to lead with fear and hate. That's what fiction teaches us. Whenever we watch a movie, that's what happens, and that's what we love. It is possible. However, I honestly believe that I've been watching people who are very very kind, who are being very kind even in business, and they are able to succeed, and they are happy and able to get what's theirs. It is possible to lead and win in life with good. And literature plays a major role in shaping ourselves. Whether it's poetry or novels, the more we indulge ourselves in it, and also in the fiction, I believe that it'll be better for human beings. It'll be better for who we're becoming. Talking about literature, I'll say one thing very very confidently. Without literature, there are very few chances for us to understand each other, for us to understand our culture, and for us to understand the reality of today. I also believe that literature is the epitome of human evolution. We are learning our ancient methodologies, and we are building ourselves to become better with it every single day, and we are leaving future generations the pathway. And the world where we are chasing custom made ancient practices, there is a higher possibility for us to fail, fail to receive the significant results the actual practices promised. I don't blame or I don't hate the people who are or the institutions who for appreciating beer yoga or disco yoga or hot yoga. In fact, I deeply love the good in it, honestly. Yet we have to understand that we have to understand the fact that the ancient yoga is far more beneficial to ourselves and immensely superior. And there is nothing wrong that comes with reading literature, following literature, or reading fiction or writing fiction. One can only basically gain knowledge from the literature, be it about becoming a better businessman or an athlete, or even becoming a better human being. Our ancestors decided to leave all these significant writings for us to live a better life. I think that we are ignoring them. We are actually overvaluing our time by ignoring them, where we are overvaluing what we are up to. And I honestly believe that if you're not into literature, your time may become unworthy, unrealistic, and unbelievably disappointing. So it's time for us to go through the books that we wanted to, and only for the betterment of ourselves. If you're not into literature, there are very few possibilities to grow. Grow healthy, grow kind, and grow skillful. Without literature, we will lose opportunities. We will lose the possibility to become the greatest version of ourselves. Moreover, literature teaches us empathy, and without empathy, we are only heading towards destruction. The way I see it is learning programming is super awesome. I mean, learning how to operate a machine, a computer that will help us in the future is definitely super awesome. I see it as an evolution for sure. Yet, if you're not leaning into history, ancient mythology, and fiction, I think you'll be far off from being able to understand the human in front of you. How come we could ignore the most precious machine we all have, which helps us every second, every minute, our body and mind? Literature definitely influences us to become appreciative of others. I mean, appreciative of the good in others as well as the good in ourselves. On the whole, as human beings, we definitely need each other to overcome challenges and live a truly blessed life. If I have to recommend you a book, I'll tell you to start reading the sacred books from your religion, right? Start there, and I believe they will definitely teach you all you got to know about the history and the fundamental thought process into believing what is good and what's bad. I'm not talking about the way you consume it. I mean, the vehicle through which you want to do it. You could listen to your parents tell you a story, or you could go buy a book, the sacred book, or you could listen to a podcast even, or even a YouTube video. I just want it to be at least a peer reviewed publication, so that will come in handy. If I've learned anything from reading and writing, fiction, be it fiction or literature, it's that we are all prone to making mistakes. We definitely are prone to making mistakes throughout our life. And we all are prone to believing our own experience and experiences overall. And we're all are prone to making judgments that are biased in our own experience. And we're all prone to become stubborn and heavy headed. So it is a must. It is a must that we have to ground ourselves consistently. I mean, on a different level. We have to ground ourselves consistently on a different level, and we have to fall in love with fiction and literature to be able to stand out from the crowd, and be able to understand each other, and be able to help each other, and be able to live a truly blissful life. So that's where I wanted to conclude. And on that note, I just want to let you know that I do have a storybook that's out. That's on Amazon. You can search it for Adventures of Riley and Coco. That's a very good book, and it's all about a little girl and her pet and their journey to become famous. Journey to fame on social media. So it's a very good book. I wrote that keeping in mind of all the Gen Z, the new generation, the younger people on social media, and I just want to give it. I just want it to be a guide. It'll be an entertaining guide. So do check it out. Have fun. Buy that for your kid or for your niece or nephew, whom you think it would become useful. All right then. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be coming back with a new episode very soon, and keep listening. Have a great day.